recording to the cloud server, so that means that I think everybody can get it easier. So yeah, you're now recording. Over to Mr. Adrian Cahill, based in Townsville, Australia.
Woohoo! Okay, guys, straight up, I'm going to share a few things today. I'm going to do what I call multiple level learning, and there's going to be multiple levels that you can learn on. So my intent, as Jay mentioned before, something about intent, it's very important to know the intent. So my intent today is to share and make sure you all walk away with 2, 3, or more things that you can actually apply. It doesn't matter if you're an educator, an entrepreneur, or a lover, loving kids, partners. What I share today, there'll be a few takeaway points in here for everyone. And while I go through, I'll also share a couple more things like a bigger process. So as a trainer, I like to use a format method, and I'll be covering today's session using the format method. And we're going to be covering some more stuff. So whenever we start training using the format method, we have to make it clear why we are here. So we are here today to learn, and I'm here today to make sure everyone here can walk away with a couple of things you can apply. So do you guys want to learn a couple of things that can help you be a better educator, a better entrepreneur, or perhaps a better lover? Yes, lover.
Yes, please. Why not?
Okay. So now I've got everyone kind of buy in. I know the audience is going to be more turned on because you know there's going to be at least a few points in here that you can take away. So then I move on to the what. And what we're going to cover this session is a bit about personality and how to manipulate personality. For you to manipulate your own personality to get more of what you want in life. And hopefully we can flick a bit more after that towards motivation and kind of manipulating your motivation. I think we've got about 30 minutes for today's session. Absolutely love questions. Questions are awesome. You can ask your questions as we go, or you can ask your questions at the back. So yeah, I do this professionally, 10 years plus or so, gone to training around the world, and I just want to share with you the kind of the best of the best that you can apply easily. And last time I was here, we were talking about this thing called personality. And some of you might think or know of this kind of extrovert. You get someone that's an extrovert, and some people are an introvert. But people aren't really introverts or extroverts. People aren't really them. It's just we get to make a decision. Am I going to stay at home, or do I want to stay at home and charge my batteries, or do I want to go out and meet people? So a lot of people often get labels, and they think they are the labels. First thing, we are not labels. No one here is depressed. No one here is anxious. No one here is highly motivated. No one here is an introvert, extrovert, very intuitive or grounded. They're just describing words that describe part of our character. Maybe they describe the way we act. So sometimes we might act over here and sometimes we might act over there. But a lot of people see value on getting a label. So people will often pay money to a doctor or a physician or a psychologist to get a label. People like to have labels. This is a chair. And it's good to have labels because whenever I see chairs like that, I don't have to look around and make sure it's going to hold my weight and balance. I can just, oh, it's a chair. So there's a lot of value being created in the world by giving labels, but they often they become a pain in the arse. You know, and today you could be labeled an anti-vaxxer because you have a different way of thinking. And you could be labeled a Trump supporter or a Biden supporter. Yeah? You can get all these labels, and it's just like, I'm not really a Trump supporter or a Biden supporter. I think they both do some stupid shit. And sometimes good stuff. But this thing, right, people often get the label as one or the other, but what it really is more of a line. And sometimes we're more here or more over there. And this is what we spoke about last week. So we could be more introverted or more extroverted. And we can take this up to the next level by adding another line and simply adding another thing like introvert, extrovert. So another thing we could add would be the next part of the Myers-Briggs. The most common one is some people are very intuitive. Some people are very intuitive, and people often say they have the head in the clouds. So does anyone tell you you have your head in the clouds? Or do people tell you you're very grounded? Very grounded.
Well, that's a good question. And I think you can have your head in the clouds and you can still be an introvert. And you can also have your head in the clouds and be an extrovert. You could also be grounded, an introvert, you could be grounded, be an extrovert. It's interesting, right?
100%. And in your business, you might be very, very grounded and in your business doing all the things you have to do. And you can be grounded in your business working the systems, or you can be very grounded in your work working with customers. And then you can get home, and when you get home, you could be somewhere else. But now, if you're spending most of your time in the business, let's say you're Michael or anyone here run their own business.
Tries to.
Okay, Mr. Steve, most of the time in your business, would you say you're more likely to have your head in the clouds and looking at the future, or more grounded?
In the clouds, looking at the future.
How far up would you say? Would you say really up in the clouds, or
Yeah, stratosphere, way up, closer to the moon.
Okay, so Steve's up here.
Yeah, way up in the clouds. Yeah.
You have to smile at the moon.
What was that?
You said you're up at the moon. You have to smile at the
Smile at the
moon.
moon. Oh, yes, exactly. Your song. Yes, that's right.
And now, Steve, in your business, are you more of do you prefer being by yourself or with other people?
Well, bit of both. Can we
bit of both.
Bit of both.
Wonderful. So a bit of both. So it's a bit hard to put the circle on the moon. So I might just put the circle around here for Steve in his business. So intuitive and a bit of both with his business.
Yeah.
Now, these two lines that I've made up, introvert, extrovert, intuitive, grounded, we can go on and we can do a full workshop on that, which is what we did last time we were here.
Okay.
And from here, Steve might start to think, you know what? If I'm really up here and enjoy being up here, maybe I need someone down here to help me in my business. Maybe I need someone down here, because for an entrepreneur to be up here, they're going to need people that are grounded. So for anyone operating a small business, wherever you are, this will be your strength, your super area. The opposite will be your weakness. Wherever you're strong, the opposite will be your weakness. Whatever you're strong in, the opposite will be your weakness. And you could also fill out a team, and you could put your whole team in here, but you could also put in your students in here and see where your students are. If you are the educator, if you are the teacher and educator, you might want to scrap introvert and extrovert. You might want to put something different up there. And something came to my mind before. I think Will said it. Some parents really want a sense of certainty. They really want to make sure their kids are safe. But you know what? I want to make sure my kids are safe too. I want to make sure my kids are safe too. And it's important for me that my kids are safe, but I don't believe in patting my child. I actually have my kid out there getting adventure or perhaps uncertainty. Uncertainty is better because it's the opposite. And I like to give my kids the opposite. Now, the kid's mother is over here. I'm over here. So I kind of provide the opposite. Mother's with my kids saying, don't climb up that thing. And when the kids are with the mother, they're doing certainty and comfort things. And when they're with me, they're getting uncertain and they're doing adventurous things. The overall intent, mother and I want our kids to have great lives. And we agree on the intent. In a business context, everyone in here should be agreeing on the intent of the business. Now, we can agree on the intent of providing safety for the kids. So mother says, don't climb obstacles. And when the mother's not around, I tell the kids to go climb and learn how to climb. And I teach the kids to have 3 points of contact as they climb. And my kids are amazing climbers and they've never fallen off. Sorry for the odd motorbike. So we have different ways of behaving. We have very different personalities, but we agree on the intent. So we're able to go forward and we're able to capitalize on different personalities. So you might want to consider where you are, consider where your partner is, and if you're in an educator role or have a podcast or something, you might like to make up your own model. For those that are going to make up your own model, you can come up with a couple of fresh ideas like intuitive, head in the clouds or in the moon. We don't want to say, are you like Steve Jobs? Because people might resonate with Steve Jobs.
I'm Steve No Jobs. If that's any help. Sorry.
Okay, so you can make up these models yourself.
Don't need to have a job.
Yeah.
Steve. Oh, Steve No Job.
I'm multitasking here.
Okay, who in the group might be using something like this to educate others?
A little.
Okay, what kind of people might you be educating, Steve?
Jay put his hand up.
Jay?
That was me. I'm educating a range of people now from support workers to men having some difficulties with life as a majority.
Okay, Jay, you might want to go through a couple of different Jay's More events. You might want to go through a variety of the meta programs, and wherever you find a bunch of men, maybe it's independence and dependence.
Yeah, you're actually stimulating quite a bit of thought, Adrian, at the moment. And
masculinity and femininity, you know, both have their place, but a lot of the people in this room find themselves more up here. Is that right? Yeah. And would you like to learn how to be able to access this? But come back to
Adrian, have you read the book Blue Ocean Strategy?
Better yet, one of my clients read it for me and just gave me the points.
Oh my god, this is really in alignment with that. Fantastic book. It talks about basically thinking on a 3-dimensional scale and not just thinking so linearly, introvert, extrovert, but adding more parameters to kind of graph your thinking. But I love the topic so far.
And people will typically grab a model and copy it. But what I'm also saying is you can copy this, but you can also make up your own. And if you make up your own, then you can make your book. And then you'll have your own model, your own book. And then other people will start copying you. So the multiple levels of learning, that's a way you can come up with your own models and a way of teaching as well.
Something that I've been working on, Adrian, is that to bring awareness to people that they can function in different archetypes or these modes if they choose to, using techniques. Like someone who's getting angry, and one of the things that I've dealt with is in archetype mode of angry out there, fighting everything. He's fighting the world. So to get that person to be able to be calm and grounded, there are techniques to get them to get out of that fixed mode. And one of the ways of doing this and using some of the techniques is for that person to find back in their life when they felt love. So if we can get a person who's angry to think about somebody they've loved, whether it's a child of theirs or when they're a child, they love their mother, whoever it is, that takes the focus away from the anger, because you cannot be angry when you're focusing on love. So using this technique is something that I've done with a lot of men are angry.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
They don't know why.
I'd rather be angry in public than crying in public.
So
Crying in public, no way. I'd rather get angry and furious. Rawr!
yeah.
Okay, we're going to take this a little step further. And have you guys heard of the growth mindset, fixed mindset?
Mm-hmm.
This person really should have just done our training instead. So this lady, Carol, PhD, she's gone and met a lot of people, and basically she's done things like, rather than introvert, extrovert, she's basically come up with a series of lines like this. And on this side, there are traits, personality traits. And this is like admiring people's success. It's like focusing on what I want. It's like being emotionally balanced. And then on the opposite side, so the opposite side, she's just generalized this and said, this is fixed and this is growth. And she's got a whole book about this model, which she just made up, which is really simply just getting the personality traits aligned. Lady could have saved herself years if she just did some basic training. But instead of doing training, she did like a psych degree and then a PhD in something. So she becomes the expert in something that hasn't really done much training. And there's a whole pile of experts out there and books out there from experts that have simply done their cycle, done their something degrees, and then they do a PhD, and then they have a breakthrough and they talk about how they discovered something, like Simon Sinek talking about why. He could have discovered why in a book, if anyone knows it. Simon Sinek is like a top TEDx speaker, millions of books sold, and he hasn't discovered a thing that hasn't already been published 100 times.
Yeah.
But he's really good at presenting it.
No, true.
He's just a really good storyteller.
I think also what you just mentioned as well about the growth mindset. I think one of the one of the famous PhD students is Angela Duckworth as well. When she mentioned about the grit and perseverance, how does your personality fit into your perseverance? How far do you take your stuff to the next level? And how long can you stay in that? I think with that's also quite interesting as well. What you also mentioned, it just ties in back as well, the growth mindset, your personality, but then also as well the grits and so forth, and even the 10,000 hours. That's myth apparently from Erickson as well. Erickson also may put a different way of saying how can you accommodate all the personalities, not personality, but let's say how do you put yourself up to the best performance.
Just be careful with the word Erickson as well, please, because guys like Jay and I, we worked a little bit under a gentleman called Milton Erickson. And
sorry,
are you talking about Milton Erickson or another Erickson?
Anderson. Okay.
And Jay, if you hear Erickson, there's actually like 3 or 4 different Ericksons which all had groundbreaking work.
Yeah, I did have the thought whether he was talking, but I then corrected it. No, I have to listen to who it actually is referencing. And but it's a good point that when we talk about somebody, we need to give enough information to identify who it is and what area that they're focused on. Yeah,
fair enough.
With this one here, I just want you to take a minute and actually write down what's something you can do different.
Can do
write down
that.
Things. Please write down 1 or 2 things that you can take away and practice this at a later date, or Maybe you want to figure out where you are. Maybe you want to figure out where your partners are. Maybe you want to graph them. And if you want me to take a picture and send you this, or send you one or two other lines later, just ask in the Trustrade group. But right now, just make sure you write down one or two things to take away. That's one of the things missing when people do Zooms and watching YouTube videos. We don't take notes. Yet for the first maybe 16 years of our life, we're constantly taking notes.
What are we supposed to be writing down? Sorry, I missed that part.
There's one or two ways you might be able to use this. One or two ways you can use this in future.
Oh, okay.
I want to put in a business plan.
Well, yeah, I'll put the business plan there.
Now, for those that are doing the training and educator role, that would conclude the first 4 of the format, the why, the what. We would go on and do a demo, a how, and would have an actual exercise. We would get an exercise and have everyone doing this. They could be standing in the ground. You can have a corner where everyone's in the corner and they're like this, and then they're over in this corner like this, and then they're over there, and people can jump into each of the 4 corners and get a feel for what it is. I've done this with IKEA, and everyone was in different areas. Now, once everyone had been in the area, we anchored it. So everyone really understood this area. Everyone really understood this area. The whole team really understood the model. And then I said, okay, everyone, find in this area where you feel most comfortable. And everyone just slowly found places to stand. And some people moved a little bit and they found where they were most comfortable. Yeah, that was a good.
So one thing I'm thinking, Adrian, if you talk about being extrovert, introvert, being with your head in the clouds, being on ground, I think it takes, I'm just thinking right now out of my head here that different decisions needs you to be on different places on that chart. It depends what are we doing? Where are we? So you don't just stay one.
Right on. Do you have an important decision to make? If you have an important business decision to make, do you want to be really grounded and looking at how much is in the bank accounts, what you have right now? Or do you want to make a decision based on intuition or where you want to be in future?
Okay. See, last year I had a bad experience. Okay, I'll share that with you guys here. I invested some of my money, my private savings, for the first time in my life. I'm 47 years old now. And I think it's kind of a common thing for especially men when they get in their mid-40s, finally in their life have some bit of savings. Well, we all have different economies, but in general. And now it's interesting to say, hey, maybe I could make it multiply. Maybe I could do something to, to make more money, and then you make the mistake because you have no experience. You trust someone that are very smart, articulated, and it turns out that they're cheating you. So my story short, I lost. It seems I've been cheated. So now if you ask me today, what would I do if I were to make a business? I'd probably stay more grounded now, you see? So each individual would answer in a different way. Also, it's depending on personality and what the decision is about. But I'd probably stay more grounded, not necessarily only look at what's on the bank account. It also depends on what project I'm throwing myself into, or is it a project that I started myself, or has it been started by someone else? So you see, it is of course a good thing to navigate within these parameters of your chart to kind of define where are you on your path. So I think it's a good way to give some support to your own understanding of where you're situated right now. But again, decisions do also depend on previous decisions in the past and your personality and the current situation, I think.
Actually, going to what Michael said as well. So I'll say I'm a data analysis by profession. and I help a lot of NGOs in the US. And most of the time, I always work towards the uncertainty and the uncertainty line, and towards the ground, and just on that horizon, but close to uncertainty. And what I realized, actually, what Michael's actually raised a good point, is that nowadays, no, that's on the horizon line. It's on the line.
Yep.
Then what I realized now, NGOs especially, because the money is scarce and so forth, and limited, they tend to move my decision, or let's say my data, and they want to be towards the grounded side, but it has to be certain. So they want to be certain, but must be grounded. But the tricky part is they also want to be in the cloud as well. But they want to make sure that before they get to the cloud, that this thing is the accurate part. This is the perfect picture. And this is where it gets frustrating because data cannot tell you, oh, this is the perfect picture. Because then at the end of the day, we go to probability, and they say, no, we don't want probability. We want that target. Like, we want to be in the cloud, but we want to be exactly in the cloud. That's I found frustrating. Sometimes frustrating doing the consulting for the NGOs.
Oh, and sometimes in ourselves. Sometimes part of us is here, and part of us starts to think about our family, and we're over here, and then we start to think about our hopes and dreams that we had when we were a kid, and we're up here in the adventurous, and then we've got to face the fact that we're getting older and approaching, retirement, so we might have to move over towards more certainty. So we often get this in ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was talking about, basically. But it's also, as William is indicating, part of society. If we have what we call a bubble in society, in some certain financial area, in the real estate or whatever it could be, or in IT, whatever it could be, the bubble will eventually burst. And just before it bursts, everyone has their heads in the clouds. But if after the bubble has burst and everyone goes down, it's just a crisis. Like the last 1.5 years, people tend to actually face reality and become more reluctant to do anything. I think it's a good mix. I think you have to be grounded to be a good businessman. However, you also need to keep your dreams, like you said, from your childhood. You need to have this energy, which is 80% of your energy. And then you need to spend those last 20% of really being very grounded and smart about what you're doing. I think it's a combination. But hey, I'm not a billionaire, so I still have to learn. Most
the billionaires will be more up here, but there's also Warren Buffett, who's a bit more over here. So each way can make it. Each way can make it. But what's more important is you're raising your awareness. You're raising your awareness. And if you really want to take it another level, you might want to have a little notebook, and you might want to just write in there at times, or have a reminder on your phone, and maybe for a couple of days, check throughout the day. Maybe in the morning you're really over here, in the evening you're really over there.
You see, what I do in my life, I'm just talking about myself now because we're not that many people. I'm teaching, I'm performing. That is being extrovert. I'm going out there communicating to groups of people in different ways to teach them things within or enlighten them with some happy things that they can take back when they go home within certain time limits, like we're doing right now, like 40 minutes or 1 hour, 45 minutes. And that's what I've been doing for the last 15 years. That's extrovert. I'm an extrovert, most people would say, but it doesn't mean that behind the lines you plan things well, you stay grounded, you know exactly what you're going to put forward when you're doing it and saying it. So it's like, I don't necessarily see there's a contradiction between being a very excellent performer or communicator and being a very excellent planner and being aware of what you're trying to do. So I think it's a good combination. You need both sides in you, but it's still something that needs to be cultivated, I'm sure, always. Yep. You never, yeah.
And guys, when I'm doing this with my friends, I often use a metaphor of being an eagle or being on the ground like a hunter. Now, when you're on the ground like a hunter, there's a few things you need. And when you're on the ground, it's nice to have a good spear, maybe a magnifying glass. You can look down, and we talk metaphorically about some of the things you might need. And a magnifying glass I just came up with in the spirit, but it could be good. You have some tools. Some tools are better. Some tools are better
On the
for
ground.
the man on the ground. And you want to be applying those tools, those strategies when you're in those situations or when you need it best. The eagle, on the other hand, needs to be light. An eagle may need to be able to travel great distances, so they can't take a lot of luggage. And
So they have very good vision and overview too.
so during the day, you might have periods where you do your planning and you have binoculars and you get maybe even play some music, which is like light and cloudy, and you get into the intuitive kind of mode. And you imagine you're an eagle and what's possible for our business, what's possible. And we've got to be thinking what's possible. And it's great to be up there and doing it. And then later on, you might have to really come down here. And when you're down here, it's more along the lines of what do we have right now? Do we have enough to pay the rent? Because if you can't pay the rent for the next month, it's pretty useless being an eagle. So when we can pay the rent for the next months and have the ground set up, okay, we're set up for the next month. Now we can shoot up and we can dream about what's possible.
Yeah, very
Sometimes
interesting.
in the day we might do this.
Yeah.
Another popular one is the E-myth. The E-myth talk about the manager who's managing, the leader or visionary, head in the clouds, and the technician. The technician's doing the work, the visionary is setting the future, the manager is managing, and it's just these 1, 2, 3. So it's a bit simpler being the 3. That's the E-myth quadrant. Similar model, just change. So business, you have your technician who's always doing the do, the visionary seeing future, and the manager. And this is why most small businesses fail, is because we've got to be able to enter all 3 if we're by ourselves. Now, if we're in visionary mode and we have to actually do technical stuff, we may overlook technical stuff because we're still in visionary mode. And to properly break down from one to the other, to step down from the eagle and to step into technical actually doing, we need a break. We need a clear break to separate, okay, now I've got to actually do the things I've got to do.
Sorry again.
But how are we doing time-wise?
Sorry again, Adrian. What was the M? The first letter M. What was that for?
Manager.
Sorry.
Manager.
Manager.
Okay. Technician. Visionary. And I'm putting this in the chat window. That's an E-myth. Famous book, great resource. The whole thing I've shared today just broken down into 3 different circles. And I might have those slightly different. It might be leader instead of visionary. Walt Disney also employed this, but the Walt Disney one was different. Walt Disney had the realists, looking at what's really possible. He had the critic who was criticizing and the dreamer. Now, the thing is, do you want to start with the critic? No, because the critic says it's shit. So you get, and you don't do it. You start with the dreamer. So he would dream, he would have a big dream. And then from the dreamer, he would look at the realist. And he would take the realist perspective, and then he would take the critic perspective, and then he would get back into the dreamer. And he would dream it again. And then dreamer, realist, critic. And he would cycle between those. Napoleon Hill did the same thing. In his cupboard, he had like Abraham Lincoln and all these mental advisors, and he would sit with his mastermind around him, Abraham Lincoln and that, and he would have conversations with them as a kid. And he got better and better. And he could always just consult with guys like Abraham mentally. Some people have their grandparents and they can consult with them, but that's too far out there. E-Myth, Walt Disney strategy.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people end up walking around in their preferred category, like the realist or the critic, and they go through a lot of their day like the critic. And you talk to them about dreaming big, and they're like, no, they're too busy criticizing. They're too busy being critics. That's okay, but I'd like you guys to have the ability to be aware of where you're at and to change. That gives you more choices.
It's so important that we have people like you're doing now encouraging. You see, looking at my own life, here in Changchun where I live, I'll make it short, guys. I've had kind of a lot of fame, celebrity, you can say, what do you call it? Fame here, singing and performing. I'm wondering, why am I the only one almost? We have a large foreign community, and I'm not the best guitarist in the world, but I just do things. Now, I understand that one of the reasons in my own life is that my mother always encouraged me since I was a little boy. When we had guests coming to our home, she made me stand in front of them and sing a song before I was put to bed. So I was like, she encouraged me to say, hey, you have a special talent. Be proud of it. I love the side of you. My father didn't do it much, but she did. And this is a comment. So encouragement in childhood, is actually very important, in my opinion. But if we don't have that much encouragement in our childhood, it is important that teachers, tutors, or anyone who have a lot of life experience goes ahead and encourages people like you're doing, Adrian, to say, hey, try to look at yourself, try to look outside the box, which is a very important point here, I think. Try to look at yourself and life from different perspectives, different angles. Try to teach yourself that you're not a slave of your mind. Your mind is something you make up. It's not necessarily your identity. You can look at your mind, at your thoughts, as something that's coming and going. You can control what you want to focus on.
And sometimes when people are procrastinating, they're hearing their critic voice. Could be their father. It could be some failure they had.
Yeah.
So they often get into the critic voice, and that creates a lot of procrastination, self-sabotage. And that's okay to have that critic voice, but we might want to put it in a box. Or we might want to say, no, we're going to be the dreamer, we're going to dream big, and we're going to write up some dreams. And after we do that, listening to mom, the encouragement, thinking about what's possible, after we get some traction, okay, let's stop. Let's listen to the critic now. Okay, the critic saying, I can't do it. If we get caught between the two, we often go like, oh, we try to start, we critic. We try to start, we critic. We end up procrastinating. If we're too far over the critic, we self-sabotage. But if we're aware of those different traits, well, maybe we can assign a part of the day where we're going to be critical, and we're going to say we're shit, and we're going to say we're not good enough, and we'll do that at the end of the day.
Love yourself. That's a good task.
Yeah, well done.
Task.
I'd love to just add something here. One of the things I'm discovering, or have discovered perhaps, is that we are not aware of what we are in mode-wise. And we have a preference. And I think this is one of the Adrian's saying is we are not defined by these things, but we have a preference to be in a mode, a type of being. And if we understand that, then we can work on a strategy to move out of it. And really, this is what people like myself, people like Adrian are doing. We're giving strategies for people to move out of what is perhaps comfort zone as far as personality and what we're displaying. But the good thing is the Myers-Briggs gives us a perception for understanding what our comfort zone is. And then the next stage is using coaches, using other people to help us strategies to learn to move out of that.
Yeah.
And
okay, just going to wrap up now
bit.
for the time thing. I just want to share a final thing in the chat window. Today's session, we covered the format model as well. So for those that are future trainers and presenters, we covered the format model. We started with why. Everyone was like, yeah, we bought in. We did a what we're going to cover today. And we started to cover it. We did a how, a bit of an exercise. And ideally, you guys would have went out and had a half-hour exercise or something, but time constraints. So the how was just on the board. And after the how, we had the what if, where we had questions about what if this, what if that, what if that. And that concludes the format model. So you guys can go out and do some of this stuff. Thank you very much for a wonderful session. Thanks for your questions. I enjoyed sharing.
Well done.
Thanks, Adrian.
Round of applause. Yay. Good stuff there. Thank you, Adrian. Never fail to impress. So I guess it's that time of the day, everyone. We're going to wind it down. If anybody's got any quick questions or anything they'd like to comment on, I see Kim's got his hand up there, but he can't really talk by the sound of it. I'll just leave it open just for a minute. If anybody wants to add something, please do.
Yeah, thank you. I was listening in the background. Sorry about that. But I do have a question. Do you think it's more let's go as a business owner, right? Do you think it's more efficient to work on your weaknesses or to hire them out?
Great question. People get famous for their strengths, not for their weaknesses. So I've always been cool with that. I think there's an element where, yeah, we should just fix our weakness or hire someone for it. We should definitely be spending the majority of time in our strengths. So whether you hire out or delegate your weaknesses or you get the basics of it, it depends how weak it is. If you're making $1 million business, but you don't have $1 million because of a small weakness, maybe it's worthwhile repairing that weakness.
Cool. Okay.
The one answer fits all approach does not work. No one answer fits all.
Well said. I guess it's covered it pretty well there, Amadeus. That was a good answer.
I'm sorry?
I guess that's covered your question pretty well.
Can I say a few words? Just
Yeah,
very short.
please do. Yeah.
Okay. What I personally really like about even these days in my own life is that I've become more aware recently that negative thoughts are merely thoughts. It's a choice to observe them, look at them, say, hey, I don't want to be there. I don't need them. Just let them go and then focus on what you want. And you have to let a little bit go of your ego and your comfort zone in order to do so, because it's easy to be caught up in, yeah, this is my identity. I'm the one who criticizes myself or he or she. Try to let it go, being aware and that this is not something that's going to take you any further. Life is too short. You need to create. You need to step out of that darkness and say, hey, this is what I want. This is what I'm hoping for. This is what I'm going for. So again, being able to look at one's thoughts as merely thoughts and not your identity, it's really a clue to how you improve your day and also your business, whatever you're doing or what struggles come your way, what your challenges. And my sister, she gave me some exercise, which was amazing. She's like helping people. She's a midwife and she's a consultant for families who have big crises when they have a baby and that was cool. So that's what I'd like to say. And I think we touched that subject today, Adrian. Also try to be aware of, and just like Jay says, of who you are. Your thoughts are merely thoughts and not something that controls you. Let them go, observe them and say, okay, that's an interesting thought, but it's not necessarily who I am. I want to be this and go for that. Anyway, thank you guys. This is what I wanted to say. Yeah.
Well done. Well said. I guess it's time to knock it on the head then. I just wanted to quickly, just wondering, Jay, did you manage to hear us at all when you're in the pit stop?
Oh, yeah.
Just
I
so
always,
we could
the
hear
headset.
you, that was all. Yeah, we could hear you too.
Oh, you can hear me? No, you can't. I know that.
We can hear you weeing in the toilet, man. It was like,
Good try.
That was
Good try. I've got my systems worked out well, so that's okay. No problem. Good for a
Luckily,
laugh.
we couldn't. I thought it was the sound of thunder here. What's that thunder? I thought it wasn't raining, but
It's actually really thunder and rain. It's pouring down again.
is it? Okay. Good to see Agnes. She's brought some
Hello.
balance to the group today. It's all guys except for her.
Yeah. So,
Well done.
sorry, it's like after the holiday, there were so many messages, emails, phone calls.
Yeah.
at this hour, Tuesday morning. Yeah, it's a bit difficult.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Beauty and the Beasts, many beasts.
Yeah.
All right.
So yeah, thanks everyone. We'll wind it down. Thanks for
Okay,
your attention.
guys.
We've got the WeChat network there, so if you want to continue on a little chat, I'll add you all to the Zoom group. I think you're already in there already. Kim is quiet, but he's at work. He can't talk much, but we all know Kim. He's fine.
Listening in.
And we'll catch up with you again next Tuesday. Oh, by
Thank
the way,
you.
we've got a really good guest
Good
speaker
to see you.
as well. We've got a surprise guest speaker next week.
Oh, great. All right, Steve. Thank you for what you're doing, mate. Catch up soon.
All right,
Thank you,
guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Cheers.
See you soon. Bye bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.